So over the past few days, a lot of you have probably seen this clip going round. The United States ambassador to Zambia, Mr. Mike Gonzalez. This man was standing at his farewell reception and basically tearing the Zambian government apart. Now, to a lot of people, this man was only supposed to be saying goodbye, just say your farewell, and that was it. But the way he went on about, he accused the Zambian government of corruption, he accused it of theft, incompetence. He said it all, there's nothing that he didn't really say. And all these allegations, if you really look at them, they date back from the year 2000. So we're talking about 26 years of allegations here, from the PF to MMD to you name it, to the current UPND government. Now, the only problem with this is that if you're going to just paint the whole political parties with one brush and say they're corrupt and everything else, then we can understand why the Foreign Affairs Minister or the current government is actually not too happy about it. But again, on the other hand, we have to look at the fact that is it raining, is it? This is the UK weather, man. You saw it yourselves. 1 minute it was nice and bright, and then the next minute, I'm gonna get soaked in a minute. So I'll have to either rush through this video or come back another time. Anyway, forget about that. So I'm just going to whiz through this video quickly without wasting much time. So I'm just going to give you a very quick context because it's important to understand what actually happened here. So on April the 30th, 2026, the outgoing US ambassador Michael Gonzalez gave his farewell speech at the reception in Lusaka at his residence, and we know that within the diplomatic circles, most of these farewell speeches, they've got to be polite, they've got to be what it is, diplomatic. You don't have to go on about this rain is getting too much, so I'm gonna have to quit this.
For decades, the U.S. relationship with Zambia was one centered on aid. The United States has provided billions of dollars of assistance to Zambia, helping the country reach HIV epidemic control, contributing to a 20-year extension and increase in life expectancy, slashing malaria deaths, and truly impacting positively the lives of every Zambian alive today. But last year, when we paused funding to review our assistance programs, so much of Zambia's health system began to crumble almost overnight. Despite over $7 billion of health assistance since 2000, and the hard work of many Zambians alongside us, that crumbling system revealed that while we thought we were building capacity, successive Zambian governments had not built systems. Too often, Zambian officials and leaders abdicated their responsibilities, letting the United States pay for health care, while officials diverted government funds to their own pockets across successive governments. Last year, I stood at a table and I shed tears before the world when I announced that the United States was cutting $50 million in health assistance. After years of pleading, I could no longer stand by while Zambian government refused to stop or to take action to hold people accountable for the systematic and nationwide theft of US-provided medicines, while the Zambian citizens for whom they were intended went without. 1 year later, not a single notable person has been arrested since February of last year. Not a single notable prosecution has even begun.
And in this regard, this response is made within the above context and is limited only to matters that the government deems necessary to respond to for the sake of offering clarity and of further guidance. Zambia-United States bilateral relations. Members of the press, to start, it is important to clarify that contrary to the statement by the outgoing ambassador, the relationship between Zambia and the United States, which I'll refer to as the US for convenience, is not, nor has it been centered around aid. That the outgoing ambassador can make such a careless assertion suggests that his understanding of the US-Zambia relations is and has been limited. This could explain the peculiar conduct of the outgoing ambassador. Since the establishment of diplomatic ties between Zambia and the United States on 24th October 1964, with Robert Forlund serving as chargé d'affaires ad interim until the appointment of the first United States ambassador to Zambia, His Excellency Robert C. Good, on 11th March 1965, US-Zambia relations have been centered, inter alia, around shared values and experiences, unconditional friendship, and mutual respect for one another as sovereign states. Today, the United States and Zambia continue to share a strong and growing partnership rooted in strategic cooperation. This partnership has delivered tangible benefits for our two peoples from inception and cannot be characterized as aid-based, as suggested by the outgoing ambassador. To do so is an affront of the highest order to the good intentions of our forefathers who dreamed of a friendship across the Atlantic Ocean of two proud states that, whilst being at different stages of development, share a commonality anchored in the principle of equality of states. Recent developments. Members of the press, during the period prior to the end of his tenure, government has observed a deliberate shift away from diplomatic etiquette and an increasingly acrimonious change in attitude by the outgoing ambassador. Again, contrary to the outgoing ambassador's allegations of non-responsiveness on the part of the government of the Republic of Zambia, he was in fact accorded the utmost decorum at the highest level and granted audience with the President of the Republic of Zambia on more occasions than most other heads of missions serving in Zambia. Similarly, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation has guided the outgoing ambassador on numerous occasions as to his role as prescribed in the convention and as expected in diplomatic practice, but to no avail. The matters raised in the outgoing ambassador's remarks during the farewell reception, for instance, have been raised many times before and addressed at the highest level. Further, it must be noted that in terms of the proposed health MOU, by which the US graciously and generously offered support of up to $2 billion United States of America dollars to Zambia over the next 5 years, the US and Zambia are yet to agree on certain of the terms proposed in the draft MOU. Whilst negotiations have been ongoing for a period of time, this cannot be referred to as ignoring the offer by the US or indeed as being non-responsiveness on the part of government. We must emphasize that the government of the Republic of Zambia owes a duty to the people to protect their interests at all times, in the same way that the US government must protect US citizens' interests, and therefore the ongoing negotiations reflect that reality. For clarity, the Zambian government wishes to state unequivocally that the stalled negotiations on the health MOU are as a consequence of the incorporation of terms that the Zambian government considers unacceptable, such as those relating to sharing of data in violation of our citizens' right of privacy. These matters are the subject of litigation in Zambian courts, and this must be respected. Aside from that, these provisions are considered unconscionable from the perspective of the people of Zambia. And therefore, government reiterates that it has a duty to protect those interests. Hence, the negotiations reaching a temporary impasse. Similarly, the proposed critical minerals agreement and associated framework must reflect the will and aspirations of the people of Zambia, and as such need to be carefully and diligently considered. I'll repeat that. Similarly, the proposed critical minerals agreement and associated framework must reflect the will and aspirations of the people of Zambia, and as such need to be diligently and carefully considered, contrary to the outgoing ambassador's allegations of inertia on the part of the government of the Republic of Zambia. Key among the reasons for Zambia's reluctance to accept the terms of the proposed agreement is the insistence on preferential treatment of US companies over Zambia's critical minerals. Rather, the Zambian government rightfully takes the view, first and foremost, that Zambians must have a say on how her critical minerals are used, and second, that no one strategic partner is to be treated preferentially to others. A further concern by the Zambian government is the coupling of the proposed agreements and frameworks to one another, such that the conclusion of the critical minerals agreement is made conditional to the conclusion of the health MOU, for instance. In this respect, the Zambian government has been consistent that the agreements must be considered separately on their respective merits and in good health. The statement by the outgoing ambassador implying the contrary is therefore untrue and aimed at embellishing the real reasons for the stalled negotiations. That being said, the Zambian government wishes to place it on record that it remains committed and available for good faith negotiations with all strategic partners, including the US, on critical minerals beneficiation in a value-adding environment for the mutual benefit of the people of Zambia and the strategic partners. General comment. The Zambian government is clear that its primary responsibility is to the people of Zambia. While the outgoing ambassador seeks to paint a bleak picture about Zambia, the opposite is true. First, President Hakainde Hichilema is on record as admitting that more needs to be done in the fight against corruption. Without question, the Zambian government is under no illusion of the need for more effort to be put into ending endemic corruption in the health and other sectors. It is thus mischievous for the outgoing ambassador to imply that the present administration is working against the people of Zambia and their best interests. To this end, during this administration's tenure, policy and legislative changes have been made in order to bolster the fight against corruption, with asset recovery at an all-time high. Recently, 30 million United States of American dollars has been recovered and forfeited to the state, for example. Further, in relation to the health commodity theft issue, while the outgoing ambassador insists on misleading the world that no tangible arrests have been made in over a year, the truth is that 156 arrests have been made across the country to date, resulting in 76 convictions. While the outgoing ambassador disparages the forensic audit undertaken in relation to health commodities theft on the one hand, it must be remembered, on the other hand, that he was part of the team of health cooperating partners that were invited to set the terms of reference for the audit. This brings to question whether the outgoing ambassador's remarks are not self-contradictory in that regard. Still on the health sector, where the outgoing ambassador speculates rather patronizingly that the Zambian government would rather sit back than deploy its own resources, it is worth noting that as a matter of fact, Despite numerous challenges being faced, the government has increased health funding in the national budget since 2021, with a 30% rise in the amount allocated in the 2026 budget compared to 2025. That the outgoing ambassador should allege irresponsibility on the part of government in spite of the foregoing is pure mischief aimed at disparaging government and should be taken with the utmost contempt. Furthermore, the outgoing ambassador going so far as to disparage legitimate processes of governance, such as the appointment of the Director General of the Anti-Corruption Commission and the enactment of constitutional amendments after due process by Parliament and other sovereign institutions, is a further testament of the clear lack of understanding of his role as a foreign envoy. For him to even suggest regime change on the back of such assertions crosses all known diplomatic lines and must be condemned for violating established diplomatic etiquette. The outgoing ambassador's delusional suggestion that foreign investors are shying away from Zambia as a result of what he describes in his statement cannot be further from the truth. Today, Zambia is heralded as an attractive investment destination by various partners globally, including the US. Recent achievements in the mining sector that place Zambia in pole position to achieve its 3 million metric tons of copper production, the recent commissioning of various mining assets, new investments in mines exceeding 12 billion United States of America dollars, the restoration of mines that has ceased to operate, and the undertaking of geological mapping to unlock Zambia's mining potential attest to the fact that Zambia is on the right trajectory. The strides made by the government of Zambia to maintain macroeconomic stability, to restore the rule of law, and reverse inherent societal imbalances speak for themselves. Numbers do not lie. From a debt-distressed and declining economy with a GDP at negative 2.8% in 2021, Zambia is now stable and poised for growth at an unprecedented level. Through effective policy implementation measures, the Zambian government has been able to tangibly deliver to its people in various social sectors, including education, with the free education policy and CDF combined, seeing over 2.5 million learners returning to school, teacher recruitment being undertaken, water and sanitation being enhanced, desks being made available, school feeding and health initiatives being availed to learners that had no hope of attaining a decent education. Through interventions in the social sector, such as enhanced social cash transfer and cash for work, the New Dawn administration has shown its commitment to improving the well-being of the most disadvantaged Zambians. This is not rhetoric, but rather verifiable facts that are in public domain. This leaves us to wonder, therefore, which Zambia the outgoing ambassador was referring to in his remarks. What is more, and contrary to the outgoing ambassador's unsubstantiated assertions, through government's deliberate efforts, policy interventions, and implementation strategies, Zambia today is considered among the premier destinations for trade and investment on the African continent and beyond. The Zambian government therefore wholesomely rejects the narrative put forward by the outgoing ambassador as being false and malicious. Policy position. Zambia remains an independent nation whose sovereignty, laws, and regulations must be respected. In addition, Zambia will not accept narratives that undermine its dignity, institutions, or leadership. The government remains fully committed to strengthening governance, fighting corruption, and delivering sustainable development for its people in accordance with its national priorities. Going forward, Zambia remains open to constructive engagement with all international partners within the context of international law and established practice. However, such engagements must be grounded in respect, non-interference, and a genuine commitment to partnership and not paternalism. In particular, the government of the Republic of Zambia reaffirms that its relationship with strategic partners must evolve on the basis of mutual respect and shared responsibility. Zambia will continue to pursue policies that serve the interests of its people and uphold its sovereignty regardless of external commentary. We call on all well-meaning citizens and global partners to ignore the assertions made by the outgoing ambassador during the farewell event hosted in his honor. As his tenure comes to an end, and as we bid him farewell and wish him all the best in his endeavors, we are confident that the departure of the outgoing ambassador presents a unique opportunity for US-Zambia relations to once again blossom and grow to their full potential. Zambia thus remains committed to the US as a cherished and important friend and partner in development. We also wish to take this opportunity to remind all members of the diplomatic corps of the need to engage in a sober, mutually respectful manner in keeping with established diplomatic practice at all times. Articles 3, 9, and 41 of the Convention are clear as to the duties and responsibilities of both foreign missions and the host government. The Zambian government reiterates its belief in dialogue rather than confrontation and remains open to mutually respectful, transparent, and meaningful engagement. I thank you all for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister.